Welcome to the Father Focus podcast.
Father Focus.
Check.
Why are we talking about this? Why does it matter?
So shaping your kids into powerful people.
Bro, let that brother fly.
Check.
All right, let's
You
go.
ready?
All right, let's go. I was messing.
What's up, everybody? I want to welcome you to the Father Focus podcast. My name is Jermaine Stewart. I'm here with Jeremy Quintini, Nathan Arsenault. We're just three fathers who are here wanting to share our hearts with you. We can be of help in any way. We know parenting is not for wimps. It's not easy. So we want to be a source and a resource of encouragement to you. Feel free to like, share, subscribe to the Father Focus podcast. We want to put content out there that is helpful. Also, feel free to share with us anything you want us to talk about. Again, we're not experts, but we are here just to help and collaborate together. With that being said, guys, you guys want to say what's up?
Yo.
What up?
What up? How you guys doing? How's the weather? You guys okay? How's family?
Man, everybody's good on my end. Got sunshine and I got some active kids. So we're having a good time.
Why you look so pale with all that sun?
Well, I don't know how to answer that because you're definitely way whiter than me.
Oh man, it's getting deep. It's getting real.
Well, I mean, it's true. You are half Mexican, so I can't really compete with that.
I am a half and half. That is true.
It's all good. He's just jealous, Jeremy. He's just jealous.
Of course I'm jealous.
Oh,
Of course I'm jealous. It's all right.
Funny.
It's all right.
Well, today you want to talk a little bit about, there's a question, how to correct your kids, like that's been the ongoing kind of discussion, right, in every generation, right? How do we correct our kids? And I know times have changed regarding correction. I remember being a kid at my grandma's house. I'm from the deep South Alabama. Don't hold it against me, the dirty. And you guys from Louisiana, so you guys know who that.
Oh,
and
yeah.
So who that? And
That's
so
right.
we
Apparently
are.
everybody right now.
What's that? What'd you say?
I said everybody right now.
Everybody. So being from the deep South, the ways that we correct, and this is interesting. I remember being a kid in my grandma's house, and my grandmother I'm one of 16. My mom is one of 16 kids. And so I have a lot. Yeah, seriously. They needed I guess I was gonna say they needed a hobby, but I guess that was their hobby. My bad. And so I had all these cousins and we hang out together. And my grandmother, we were always getting in trouble. We're in the country, we're always running wild, doing things. And my grandmother would say, I remember her saying, it was like the worst thing, go get me a switch. And literally, if you don't know what a switch is, it consists of this bush with these branches, and you tear the branch off, and she pulls the leaves off, and they would proceed to spank you with this, and it would just ricochet back and forth.
Ooh.
It's called a switch. And so I got switched. And I remember one time my twin brother was getting switched because he was running his mouth. And I remember my grandmother, she swung and she missed him. She was elderly. He goes, you missed me. And she said, wait, just missed me. And she went, wow. And I got you that time. And so I'll never forget it. Like I'll never forget that Green Mile walk of going and pick a switch. And so, I mean, of course, that might be considered abuse today. But I want to talk a little bit about that, about how correction has changed. Like, what would you guys, let me start with this. What would you guys say? What are some things that we've lost in correction, right? What are some things that have lost? And what are some things we've gained? Who wants to share on that?
Well, before we get into that, it's just funny to think about, because I feel like back when we were growing up, and probably way before, it was like, I'll beat you first and ask questions later.
Oh, that's true.
It was basically like someone will talk, so everyone's getting whooped, and someone's gonna confess. And if you didn't get whooped because you deserved it, you probably got away with something another time that you deserved it for.
Were you guys ever told not to cry? Like, don't cry?
Oh,
No.
yeah.
I got told don't cry all the time. And
but
move your hand.
me and my brother one time thought it'd be really smart to put some books in our underwear, so it wouldn't hurt so bad. But we didn't think about the fact that literally our butts would look like squares instead of circles. And my dad goes, pull down your pants.
Oh, man.
No!
Yeah.
Man, that belt hurts so
As
bad.
if he couldn't tell. Or he just spanks you on the back instead of the butt.
Oh, seriously?
No, they only did the butt.
All right, so I'll tell you this. As far as like spanking, I used to prefer And I used to prefer my dad to spank me because he's very coordinated. He would hit the same spot. When my mom would come, she'd come in like a ninja. I mean, you get hit in the head, you get hit in the ankle. I mean, everywhere's getting hit. I mean, she come for violence. My mama don't play.
Oh, I get it. Those mothers from the South, they don't play around. And I remember those horrific, wait till we get home. That was the worst. Like the longest car ride ever, So, but here's my question. Was that?
I said cruel and unusual punishment.
Absolutely.
It wasn't unusual.
It was unusual. So what have we lost in the modern way of correction? Like, what do you guys see in the modern day? What are some things we've lost, right, in correction? And what are some things you would say we've gained?
Yeah, I think from the positive, and I can only speak for me and my family dynamic and the people that I talk to, I think there was that tendency to just automatically go to whooping your kids or paddling your kids or spanking your kids. Like it was like that was the default anytime your kids stepped out of line, which I think people might disagree with me on this. There's a time and a place for that. It's not the first thing we use with our kids, but there have been times where we have done that. Mm-hmm. But I think there has been an emphasis on understanding and knowing your kids and valuing the relationship over just blind obedience. You know what I mean? I remember it was like, kids are supposed to be not seen and not heard and basically obedient little soldiers that just stay out of the way. And I think we've realized, thankfully, that kids are kids. Like they don't have the maturity level of adults. They are going to lose control of their emotions. They are going to act out of line. They are going to do stupid things because they're 6, 7 years old. And that's what 6, 7-year-old kids do. Mm-hmm. And so I think there's been an encouragement to, ask the deeper question of why is your kid acting this way? Maybe they're tired. Maybe they're hungry. Maybe something bad happened at school and they don't know how to communicate that. Maybe they're feeling something weird, but they don't have the maturity to communicate what they're feeling. Right. And so asking those questions and assessing the situation over just you obey me because I'm the parent, I think all that does is it breaks the relational trust between parents and kids. So I'm thankful to see that parents are understanding the value in assessing their kids, their needs, their desires, their personalities before just pulling out the belt and going to town,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So you took the positive. I'll take a aim at the negative. I think one of the things that what we see is that we're very much a society that is based off of like first appearances, all these filters. And so wanting to appear a certain way. And so wanting to appear to your children as cool. Okay. Or wanting to appear to your children in certain lights and not wanting to first appear to your children and let the children know that you are there to bring guidance and direction to their life. Now, obviously, we're going to be friendly and relational. Absolutely. But then there's something a little bit further that we need. And I think I see a lot of parents want to sacrifice certain levels of their authority for just to make sure their kid doesn't get angry with them. Right. So we're going to give them whatever they want so that there can still be, the child will always just be so happy and delighted and keep that kid as a baby all their life, rather than using a little bit of stress and hard times to let them grow. So, and by doing that, we have given the boy, the girl, the child, the ability to make choices before they're actually even ready to make those choices. I think that's actually very harmful. So just being the cool parent, letting them go out, like on our last episode. And I would encourage everyone who is listening right now, if you didn't check out our last episode, we did it on discipline and on training our kids and like when are times to open that up. And I think that's part of it. Like we may sacrifice disciplining our children and training our children merely to look a certain way and just to kind of keep on their good side, which is, insane, honestly.
Right. Because it's always changing, right? What your kids think is always changing.
Oh, man.
What's cool yesterday is not cool tomorrow. Nathan, you mentioned paddling. I remember in school, right? You guys, you guys ever got paddled in school?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, could you imagine today paddling a kid with a piece of wood? I'm sure we have some horror stories.
There'd be a protest. There'd be a protest outside the school the following day. You know,
absolutely
hurting the kid's inner child. You know,
yeah, right,
absolutely. So that's good stuff. So here is the next question. So, what would you guys say the difference is? What's the difference between discipline and punishment? Like, what would be the difference? I mean, the words can be used interchangeably. Is there a difference? What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think there's some nuance to those words, right? People can use them and mean the same thing, but I'll kind of talk more about the principle, and you can probably assess how you respond in a situation. I think discipline is child-minded first. And what I mean by that is the goal is more about helping the child grow than your feelings or frustrations in the moment. So a parent who focuses on disciplining their kids is still frustrated at times, still gets annoyed, still gets angry at their kid for not listening, not picking up their clothes, not eating their vegetables, punching their sister, hitting their brother, whatever it is. But they understand that these are opportunities and moments to develop discipline in their kid. Like I've heard someone say this, and I think it's so true. The goal of discipline should be to create self-discipline in your kid.
So good.
Right? The goal should be, I want to teach them how to respond next time better than they did this time. So like, for example, I think I've shared this before, but our daughters are best friends. They love playing together. We have this toy room down in the basement, and they'll go down there and they'll play for hours, and we can hear them singing and playing, and they have like 5 Barbie doll houses and hundreds of dolls and all this stuff. And usually they're down there forever, but every once in a while you hear one of them scream, "Ah!" and then you hear running through the basement, up the stairs, and then shortly thereafter, the other one's coming. They're screaming and running each other. What's going on? Why are you guys fighting? Well, she did this to me, and she did this to me. Well, this one time, Brooklyn had decided she had had enough of Harper, and she grabbed her by the throat and was choking her.
Oh my gosh!
Just to be clear,
when that happened,
this is probably a few months ago, so they had to be they had to be 7. And
wow.
You know, of course, Harper's not going to take it. She probably punched her back. You know, I mean, it's this whole thing. But like, no, just to be clear, I didn't teach Brooklyn, hey, when someone really ticks you off, grab them by the throat and squeeze.
Right.
But I realized, oh man, this is a really good opportunity to create some self-discipline in Brooklyn. So I sent Harper away, tried to console her, and me and Brooklyn talked for a while. And I asked her, why'd you do this? And what was the reason? And to try to understand. And then I said, do you feel like this is the right way to respond? And she said, but I get so angry and I don't know what to do with my emotions. And Harper gets me so mad, and I just want to choke her. And I'm like, okay, well, how would you feel if Daddy did that to you when I was upset? Well, that would really hurt, Dad, really scare me. Well, how do you think Harper feels? And so we had this opportunity to dialogue, but I didn't just leave it as, hey, this is bad behavior. I said, all right, what do you do next time Harper gets you frustrated? She said, well, I don't know. I said, well, what would you want Harper to do if she was mad at you? And so we talked through this concept. And then I said, okay, Brooklyn, here's what I want you to do. First, you need to go apologize to your sister. But next, I want you to go ask the Holy Spirit. I want you to go spend some time with God and ask him what you should do differently next time. So she went into her room. She spent a few minutes in there. She came out. We talked, and she said, well, God told me to do this. And I said, that's really good. Do that next time. And so it was this opportunity for me as a dad to remove myself from the situation, because I think we all feel this as parents. Every dad listening, if your mom listening, you get this. Your kids always interrupts you at the worst possible time. They don't fight when it's like you're sitting around doing nothing and just like, oh, let me handle this. You usually have 5 other things going on that are draining you, frustrating you, and your kids always are coming at the most inopportune moment and really like messing up your schedule. And so there is that knee-jerk reaction. I am going to lose it on you, kid, because you don't even realize what you're doing to me. And so I would say that is really the heart of punishment. And I don't think that's a good way to parent, is I'm going to make you pay for what you did to me. And I've seen parents do this, right? Their kid embarrasses them in the public. Just you wait till we get to that car. Just you wait till we get home. I'm going to make sure you know how I felt, and I'm going to pay you back for what I did. And a lot of times that's rooted in the parents' own embarrassment of their kids' behavior. It makes them look bad, or they're inconvenienced, or they're frustrated, or honestly, even sometimes they're taking out their own anger that's not related to the kids at all in the kid.
Yeah.
And it's like, does that actually create the type of relationship you want? And I think punishment is about control. Discipline is about love. Right? Punishment is about, I'm going to get you to comply and I'm going to force my power over you. Which is discipline is, I'm going to teach you how to elevate your maturity to a level to where we can interact in a way that's helpful for both of us. And so I think it's a good opportunity for us as parents to evaluate, like, when it comes to those moments where you're completely irritated, frustrated, ticked off at your kid, and you want to just lose it. Are you operating in your child's best interest or your own? And I think that's a really good way to determine whether you're punishing your kids or you're disciplining them.
Yeah. And Nathan, that's really good. I look at it from, the Bible's view. Paul told Timothy, he said, bodily exercise has some profit, but rather discipline or instruct or train or discipline yourself unto godliness. So the word discipline, especially throughout the book of Proverbs, the way the Bible views, not always, but at times, the way the Bible and Proverbs uses the word discipline is instruction. And so, Jermaine, to answer your question, like, the difference there is discipline is the training of how they should act. So the process, which happens daily, we always have moments of discipline, whether it's one child choking the other, or whether it's, the way their episode, first, second, third episode, my kids are sipping chocolate milk off the floor like dogs, right? So I need to instruct them, train them, discipline them, condition them to not do certain things and to do other things. Like, this is what we do, this is not what we do, versus punishment. And that there are times of punishment when, the severity of punishment is obviously needed at different times and different methods, and people have their different methods of the affliction that is upon a child. And by affliction, I'm not talking about merely spanking or switching, all those things, but literally, like, hey, you need to be alone. For one of my kids, letting them be alone is like the worst thing. They would rather get a spanking than ever be alone. And so sometimes I'm like, no, you're going to go sit alone for a little while. And like Nathan said, I want you to go and pray. I want you to go talk to Jesus, and I want you to ask for forgiveness, all these different things. And sometimes, so those are the differences. I would say, discipline, we're training, we're instructing, and then punishment obviously has to do with a certain level of correction. Discipline has that too. Discipline still has, maybe, the words can be related in a certain sense, but in a certain sense, we can separate them and bring them back, because we can also discipline them in punishment and correction. So
that's so good. So I hear what you guys are saying is just, it involves, head and heart, right? You're not just trying to correct behavior, to create, knowledge. We're also trying to reach their heart, right? The center of who they are. So that's so good. Yeah. We got to think about that. It's easy to forget head and heart that we're going after when we're training up and disciplining our children. So my next question is this. So what are some of the common challenges? Like, what would you guys say when it comes to correcting your children? Right. What are some common challenges? Even think about this way, even some people would, maybe they're in a divorce situation, where the parent gets them one half of the time, the other parent gets them the other half of the time. What would you guys say to some of those kind of challenges? We've gotten divorced and we get our kids, half of the week and the parent the other half of the week, and I'm having problems disciplining my kid. And what would you guys say to that parent, or that parent that was divorced and now remarried and now they're a stepdad or a stepmom? What are some challenges how would you guys speak to those challenges?
Well, that is a great question. Nathan, you want to take that one?
Well, as someone who has not been divorced, I don't know if I can speak into that very well. I'm going to throw that one back to you, Jeremy.
Yeah. Well, I also haven't been divorced. You said Jeremy or Jermaine?
Jeremy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Jermaine, that's such a great question. What do you
Yeah.
think? No, I'm just
Yeah.
kidding. I'll go ahead and take it. You know, obviously, common challenges that we have in life. It can. One of them would be to correct too little. How about that? One of them could be correcting too much, which would be my propensity, is to be on top of your children. If you know, if they do something so small, hey, we're going to jump right on top of them. We're going to um, you know, I guess just be parenting too much. There is such a thing, guiding too much, like rather than letting them make their own decisions at certain points. Like you're going to tell them, like somebody that's hyperly aggressive in instructing their kids, not giving their children a place of freedom. Like that's a problem. Or the other problem could lie in I'm not giving them any guidance. And I'm just kind of hands-off parent. I'm watching my football game. I've been working hard. I just want to be left alone. Like that's a foolish parent. And so there are two pitfalls on both sides, and you have to learn the art of parenting is taking both sides of the guardrails, if you will, and bringing them together to guide and direct your kids. So I'd probably say that's probably a challenge that people face.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And somebody
no
keeps
doubt.
getting text messages.
I was actually reading this yesterday in a parenting book, and it's in Colossians, I think. It says, "Fathers, do not exasperate your children." And I was thinking about that, and they kind of gave a definition of what that means. It's an ongoing pattern or treatment that gradually builds up to deep-seated resentment that finally boils over. And I think the point that they're trying to make there that I didn't really think about is that you can literally squash your child's hearts by literally beating down on them.
Yeah.
You know, that incessant demanding nature that I think we can all find ourselves in is, well, kids are supposed to listen. They're not listening. So I'm going to come harder and stronger and more often. And, you know, like sometimes kids are struggling for reasons not just because of their choice or their will. There's circumstances that are literally overwhelming them. There might be cognitive issues or behavioral issues where they need outside support or help, or maybe it's the home or culture you've created. I mean, there's so many things to look at, and I think it's too simplistic to say when I give a command, my kid needs to listen. Your kids are not in the army; they're in your family. And I think there is that relational component that we miss sometimes. There's a quote I heard, and man, I think about it a lot because it keeps me focused. It says, "The way we talk to our children becomes their inner voice." I don't know if you guys have heard that before. And I thought about it. I was thinking, man, when my kids think in the future, what voice are they speaking to themselves in their head? Is it demanding? Does it cause insecurity? Does it cause fear? Do they feel like they have to perform for love? Like, what are we communicating to our kids through our words, through our correction, and what are they hearing? And then how is that making them view themselves? And so I think as parents, we need to start asking questions, maybe more internal, maybe not so much with our kids, but why is my kid acting this way? Is this normal behavior? Is there something going on that I'm not aware of? Instead of automatically assuming that everything is done out of rebellion. And I've said this before, you guys might have heard me say this. The difference between rebellion and ignorance is information. And sometimes kids don't necessarily understand what they're doing wrong because they either don't have the ability to fully grasp the concept, or you haven't told them specifically what you expect of them. And so spanking your kids, punishing your kids, grounding your kids, taking away their Xbox, grounding them from church, which I don't understand why parents do that, doesn't actually teach them a lesson. All it does is exasperate their heart because they don't understand what they did wrong, or they don't know. Maybe they feel like I can't ever do enough to please my mom or my dad. They're always going to be upset at me no matter what I do. I can never be good enough. I don't want my kids to feel that way. And so I think sometimes it's really helpful when it comes to the common challenges. We need to pause and listen as parents. We need to wait before we correct. There's times where it's very blatant. Your kid will look at you in the face and tell you no. It's very obvious that is an easy time to correct. But I think there's a lot of situations where maybe your kid walks in the door and they're in a grumpy mood or have a bad attitude, and maybe it has nothing to do with you. It has to do with something else they're carrying. Like I'll share this and then I'll shut up. I watched this show and this girl was being molested by her basketball coach. And she came home and she was in a really bad mood, and her parents didn't know what was going on. And so they grounded her in her room. And she was, she was acting out. She was mouthing off. She was frustrated, all this stuff. But they didn't know why. And they kept hammering her all the while she was being molested. Is it possible your kids are going through things and you just don't know it? And so you're putting the hammer instead of actually serving up some love that they might desperately need in that moment.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good reminder because, thank God for the hammer, but there are other tools as well, right? That we don't. We can't use a hammer for everything, right? It just doesn't work. So that's so good to be reminded. You can't use a hammer on glass, right? It's not good. And so sometimes, you mentioned, Nathan, that, you mentioned whether it's rebellion or ignorance. Sometimes it can even be immaturity, right? Immaturity can look like rebellion. They often can look like each other, mirror each other. And it's really just immaturity. It's not rebellion. It's just they're just young, right? They're just kids, and they're going to do things that kids do. And one thing I want to encourage those who are listening, and even those who are, whether you're together or divorced or whatnot, is that catch your children doing something good. One of the ways that you can offer correction constructively is, you find them doing the right thing. You don't just catch them doing the wrong thing. Catch them doing something good and speak to that good thing that they're doing.
That's
I
really
saw
good.
you, doing this with your sister. That was so kind that you spent time reading your sister, or you preferred your brother when you did this. That really meant a lot to me. Catch them doing good. Take time to admonish and encourage them. And, again, we may think, well, that's too much. You're puffing your kid up. Well, let the Holy Spirit deal with them if they're proud, but none of us would say we were encouraged too much by our parents.
Right. Absolutely.
I would think not. And so I just want to encourage those who are listening, like, you're not just correcting, you're also encouraging, speaking life into. Well, Nathan, what you said was it's convicting to us. I know that as dads who are on this podcast and to those listening, it's convicting to us all that we become their inner voice, or they view God the way they view us by the way their dealings with us. And so that's a very sobering thought and message there. So thank you guys both for sharing. What would you guys say, just, final, as we get ready to close, what do you do when your kid's not listening, right? You're doing it in love. You feel like they're not hearing you, or you're not reaching them. What do you do? Like, your kid's not listening to you, Jeremy. What would you say? What are some things that you would say to the parents that are listening?
I would say that's absolutely and completely 100% normal. Because the fact is no one listening and no one speaking is perfect at listening and obeying. And so the reality is that if you have kids, here's the encouragement. You're going to have to tell them twice. You're going to have to tell them 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times. It's because that's part of what it is to grow up. Part of what it grows up in maturity is the ability to be able to be obedient. Children are not naturally inclined to do everything right and perfect. They're going to fail. And we get the great privilege of what shall I say, of helping them become better at something like, maybe it's so small as listening. So, part of it is, expecting, you should expect your children to listen. I think it's ridiculous on some level. Some parents, I see some parents, count, get in the car, 1, 2, 3. And it's not, and what you're doing is you're actually teaching them that they don't have to listen. You're teaching them, number 1, I'm going to count to 1. So you're teaching them on 1, 2, 3, 4 that they can disobey you. You're teaching them disobedience. 5, So what I do is I try my best with my kids to only have to tell them one time. And then on the second time that I address it, like, hey, I already asked you to do this. You know, I don't like to ask 2 times. So that's the thing. So they're getting corrected and then they're getting encouraged to like, hey, be obedient. You know, one of the things that I think is, you know, this is small, but in the South, like living where in Baton Rouge out here, every child refers to every adult as Mr. and Mrs. And you're seen as disrespectful if you don't say Mr. or Mrs. Like that is a big deal. And so or yes, sir, no, sir. Like I was like in culture shock when I moved here, listening to every teenager say yes, sir, no, sir. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. Like that's crazy. So I'm like, dude, I gotta teach my kids this, and that's not natural for me, really, because that's not the way I really grew up. It's just yes, no, and I hear people out here correcting people like their kids, you know, and it's like something, and that's something that I do. You know, if they don't respond right, hey, you know how to do this. So I would just say, hey, relax. And allow your training and your disciplining of your kids and instructing them to just be a smooth process. You know, like Nathan was saying, they're not in the military, but you do have to expect them to do the right thing. So,
yeah, that's really good. I would say it is natural for you to want to please people that you know love you and care about you and are an encouragement in your life. Like that is very natural. And so I would say if we are being the parents that we're supposed to be, I think our kids' natural desires want to please us. I think the breakdown happens first, it's in relationship before behavior changes. And then I think a lot of times we have to look at, have we built the amount of emotional trust with our kids to where not only do they know they have to listen to us, but they want to listen to us. That's not always going to be the case. Sometimes your kids are just going to want to do what they want to do. But I'm saying, generally speaking, I think kids do want to please a loving, encouraging parent. I think they do. And so I would say if you're in a season where you know you've been doing it right and your kids aren't listening, it's probably time to just invest in that relationship even more and pull that kid even closer, because I want to be the loudest voice in my kid's life. There's probably outside influences that have come in and become a louder voice to your kid than you have. It could be demonic. It could be spiritual. It could be a friend. It could be a different person in their life. I mean, there's so many other ways that people get into their heart. But I would say I want my voice to be the loudest in their life. So I have to constantly steward that relationship. And if that's where you are, pull them even closer, take a trip with them, go on a vacation with them, just you and them, build that connection again with them and remind them of how much you believe in them and are for them. And I would say if you're the parent who maybe you didn't live up to the example you wanted to set, maybe you were inconsistent in your discipline and correction, or you weren't in their life, I don't think you can expect your kids to just lockstep and heel do what you say. You have to build that relationship of trust with them, especially if they're teenagers. I see this dynamic a lot of times. Parents decide to start bringing the discipline and relationship in the teenage years. You've spent, at least 13, 14 years neglecting the relationship. It's going to take some time to build it back. You can get there. You can get there, but you're not going to get there overnight. So I think your job is, just like in a relation, I need to build influence over time with my kids. So start spending time with them, ask them questions, get to know their heart, and be more that wise voice of counsel than the demanding drill sergeant that expects obedience. And I think you'll be surprised to see your kids' heart shift towards you, because they say, man, they really care about me. They want what's best for me. It's that old adage. We've all said it. We've all heard it. Rules without relationship always equals rebellion. And so prioritize relationship, pray a lot. If you need to, get a punching bag or a pillow to scream into, but don't hit your kid. Don't scream at them, right? Don't punch them. You work that out with you and Jesus and your spouse. You guys get on the same page and you'll figure it out.
On another like practical point, Nathan, you brought up something that triggered this thought. I heard, I think it was Paul Tripp. I don't know if y'all know who that is, Paul David Tripp, but he said that he noticed when his kids start being disobedient, it didn't start with them. It started with him. Their disobedience was actually his failures as a father. And part of the failure is, so for instance, we should expect obedience We should expect them to obey. That should be normative. It's not like we're not going to expect our kids to disobey. Now, they will disobey, but should expect obedience and compliance with how our culture is in our home. So he would always say, soon as I see them slipping up, I'm noticing that, and it's like me doing things wrong. Like I'm not paying attention to them. I'm not giving them what they need. Like, so he's taking this extreme level of responsibility, even over their mistakes. Like their mistakes are his, and he'll own that up. Now, that's not saying that they don't have their own issues. There's sin in their lives. There's things inside of them that need to be corrected. And we're going to address with that too, because the issues are not always outside of us. They're inside of us. And so he's literally running after himself of being a better dad in order to help condition them to be better children.
Yeah, so good. Yeah, it's remind me, just as you guys are sharing, Nathan quoted a note at Edge, it's another one is they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, and time, John Maxwell says leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. And so when we were losing that influence, like we're saying, it's so good to be reminded, spend time with your children, spend focused, uninhibited time, I have 4 and it can be challenging, but going on daddy-daughter dates, letting your son take your wife out and letting them make it a big deal, right? Creating space just to connect. Connection is so important. Without connection, there is no discipline. There can be no correction, only rebellion. So we want to encourage you, to those out there, if you feel like you're so busy, you're bombarded, listen, create margin in your calendar. Spend time with your children. They are a gift, and they are growing and they are changing. And before we know it, we'll blink and they'll be young adults. And so I just want to encourage those who are listening, those who are out there, start today, no matter where you find yourself. Start today. Model humility. If you blow it, repent. Go to your child. Model humility. Model that connection that you want them to have. Again, we want to thank you for being a part of our Father Focus podcast. Feel free to like, share, and subscribe. We're on all major podcast platforms. We want to thank you guys again for being a part and joining with us. Please be encouraged. If you have anything you want us to share, please share it with us and let us know that you want us to talk about certain issues. We hope you're encouraged. God bless, and we hope to see you next episode. Peace.
Peace.